I don't want to say series, but because it may be a part two, but the topic for today, and it may be a second part to it, is preparing for next. I want to talk about preparing for next. And anyone that knows me or that follows my ministry, follows my teachings, know that there is a common thread that flows throughout my messages: personal growth, identity, and purpose. Anybody that follows me, follows my teachings, follows my ministry, knows that there's a common thread that flows through my messages: personal growth, identity, and purpose. And what I try to do is to challenge and help individuals to grow into their Christ identity, to grow into divine purpose. That's my charge. That's one of my mandates. That's an assignment that has been given to me by God. And this is something that I know from this journey, is that you can't shift to a higher level of who you are, or you can't move into another dimension of who you are, or to another level of purpose or the fullness of who you are without growth. That's something that I've learned. You cannot do it without growth, without personal development. You can't fulfill divine purpose in its entirety without growth, without development. Why? Because you have to continue to increase your capacity. You have to continue to increase your capacity. And the only way you can really do that is by growth. The only way you can really increase your capacity is by growth. As you elevate and as you rise higher and you level up and you go from faith to faith, from glory to glory, guess what? You need room for increase. You got to increase your capacity. You need room for increase. So as you begin to level up, as you begin to go to new levels or new dimensions, there are more demands on you. There are more requirements. There's more responsibility. So in order for you to handle that, in order for you to manage that, in order for God to expand your territory, you got to increase your capacity. And I talked about that last time, so I'm not going to go deep into that. But the only way you can increase your capacity is that you have to grow. So if you desire to maximize your life, if you desire to maximize your potential, if you desire to grow into the fullness of who you are, into a higher version of you, then you got to grow. You have to develop, and you have to be intentional. You have to grow on purpose. You have to grow on purpose. You have to be intentional, because growth is not automatic. It's intentional. And we all know that growth can be painful. Growth can be uncomfortable. Growth can be frustrating. But I'll tell you this, even though growth can be painful, growth can be uncomfortable, growth can be frustrating. But if you fail to grow, if you neglect or refuse to grow, then you're gonna hinder your movement in purpose. If you fail to grow, if you neglect to develop yourself, you're going to hinder, because you're in movement. You're moving. You're shifting. So you're going to hinder your movement in destiny, your movement in purpose. And this is what I learned on this journey, is that purpose is lived out in seasons and phases. Purpose is lived out in phases and seasons. So listen to this. Your lack of growth, your refusal to grow, can potentially lock you out of the next season. Your failure to grow, your refusal to grow, or maybe you're just not refusing, you just don't want to grow, and I guess they're still refusing, it can lock you out the next phase, the next season of purpose. And you're like, why am I not moving? Why am I not shifting? Hey, Dr. Rainey, good to see you. Hey, Coach Young, good to see you. And you're saying, why I'm not moving? Because you're not growing, you're not developing, and you're locking yourself out of the next phase, of the next season. It hinders that. Purpose is lived out in phases and seasons. And you don't want to lock yourself out. In other words, you delay your next level. You delay promotion. You can't shift to higher dimensions. There is no progress. There is no increase. And I know many of you may be in a season or a phase in your calling where you like, God is not moving. God is not shifting. God is not doing anything. I don't hear God talking. I don't hear God speaking. I feel stagnant. I feel stuck. Come on, I know some of y'all are either in that season or you've been in that season where I'm in a phase of this calling where God is not moving. Nothing is moving. Nothing is shifting. I don't feel God speaking to me. I feel stuck. I feel stagnant. I'm ready for what's next. I'm ready for next. I'm ready for the next level. I'm ready for more. And this is what God put on my heart to tell you. He said, just because it doesn't feel like purpose, get this, doesn't mean it's not purpose. Just because your season doesn't feel like purpose, doesn't mean it's not purpose. You can be smack dead in the center, in the center of the will of God. And it may not even feel like it. Oh, trust me, I know. And you don't even realize you're in it. So he told me to relay this message to whoever on this power chat today. He said, just because it doesn't feel like purpose, because if you're looking and searching for a feeling, you're going to miss purpose. You're going to miss destiny. You cannot measure by a feeling. So he said, if you're waiting on a feeling, you're going to miss the will of God for your life. You're going to miss destiny. So he said, just because it doesn't feel like purpose doesn't mean it's not purpose. So you cannot afford to slack off. You cannot afford to loosen your grip. You cannot afford to get comfortable. You cannot afford to get lazy. Just because it doesn't feel like purpose doesn't mean it's not purpose. Continue the pursuit. Continue the pursuit. You can't let up because something is happening. Whether you realize it or not, whether you discern it or not, something is always happening. You may not see it in the natural, you may not see it with your natural eyes, but something is always happening. I promise you, something is always happening. And you know what? It's usually happening in you. It's usually happening in you. So you can't see it. You may not feel it. You might feel some frustration or some uncomfortableness, but something is happening that's way greater than what you probably can even discern. Listen to what I tell you. Something is happening. And you can't see it and you can't feel it. And if you let up and loosen your grip and you let up off the gas, you're going to miss something. You're going to miss something. So let God work. Stay in position. You're right where you need to be. Don't move out of position. Because a lot of times we will move out of position. Let's be honest about it. And we'll say, okay, I'm going to make something happen. I'm going to go force a door open. I'm going to make a door open. I'm going to create an opportunity. And that's fine. You can do that. But that doesn't mean it's divine. And that doesn't mean it's God. That doesn't mean that it's God. It doesn't. So you can't go by feelings and you can't go by what you see. You got to stay in position and you can't let up and allow God to finish the work in you. Because if you don't complete the season, if you don't complete the season, if you don't allow God to finish the work in you, listen, in this season, on this level, there is no promotion. I remember him ministering this to me. You got to complete the season. If you don't allow God to do the work in you on this level, in this season, if you don't complete your current season, there is no promotion. There is no advancement. There is no next dimension. You can't level up. So my question to you is, despite what you feel, despite what you see, despite what you desire, despite what your flesh is speaking to you and your feelings is speaking to you, despite what your flesh is saying to you, will you keep preparing for next, growing for next, building for next, enduring for next? Will you keep at it? Despite what your flesh is speaking to you and telling you, despite what the season may look like, despite what your feelings are preaching to you, despite what your emotions are trying to deter you to go in whatever way, will you keep preparing for next, building for next, enduring for next? Will you keep growing for next when there's no manifestation in sight? Because now you have to have that revelation. We talked about that. You're building, preparing, and enduring where there's no manifestation in sight, but you're believing that the fruit will eventually come. You're believing that the fruit will eventually manifest, but you got to have a revelation. You got to receive it by faith. And we already talked about revelation. Revelation, hey Nadia, good to see you. A revelation is when you're seeing it as being already done. You receive it in your spirit. You receive it as already been done. It's not manifested in my life, but God spoke it. He declared it. It's already done. When you have a revelation, you see it as already being done. You receive that thing by faith. So guess what? You can keep preparing for next, growing for next, building for next, because you got a revelation. And when you have a revelation, we're talking about inner knowledge. Revelation is an inner knowledge, and you can only get it directly from the Spirit of God. You can only get it from the Holy Spirit. It's inner knowledge. It has nothing to do with outside knowledge, outside manifestation, outside sight. We're talking about an inner knowledge. That's what revelation is. It comes from the Spirit of God on the inside of you. It's when your spiritual eyes are opened. There's an awakening. You can see it. And when you have a revelation, despite the season that you may feel, despite what you're feeling about God is not doing nothing, God is not moving, God is not shifting, when you have that revelation, guess what? You hold on to the vision. You're going to hold on to the destiny, to the purpose, to the promise that God spoke and declared over your life. You're going to hold on to the image that he showed you about your future and about your destiny. When you get a revelation, you're going to hold on, and you're going to hold on tight. I may be dangling off the edge, but guess what? I'm not letting go, because I got a revelation. And I may be in pain. I may be in struggling. I may be wrestling. It may be an adverse season, but guess what? I'm not loosening my grip. I'm holding on for dear life. Why? Because I got a revelation. I got inner knowledge. This is not no outside knowledge. This is inner knowledge that comes directly from the Holy Spirit, from the Spirit of God. The word says this: you will enjoy and eat the fruit of your labor. You better write that down. Because sometimes when you get weary and nothing is happening, and you know, where's the fruit? Where's the manifestation? You need to go and read that verse. You will enjoy and eat the fruit of your labor. Blessings and prosperity would be yours. That's what the word says. I didn't say it. The word said. Say that you will enjoy and eat the fruit of your labor. It's already done. We're just trying to walk it out. We're trying to live out that reality and manifest it, waiting for it to manifest. But it's already done. God said, I knew the end from the beginning. If he know the end from the beginning, it's already done. It's completed. It's finished. He know the end from the beginning. So that means it's already mapped out. It's done. He already know what he has for you. He already knows what's been done. I mean, what he has for you and what you're going to walk into, because it's already done. It's finished. I know the end from the beginning. We're just trying to live out that reality. We're trying to manifest it in our lives. He spoke it. He declared it. The word says God is not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he have to repent. If he said it, will he not do it? If he spoke it, will he not make good on it? You got to get that in your spirit. Get that in your spirit and renew your mind to that every time that you having a weak moment, a stress moment, a frustrated moment. Is God a man that he should lie? If he spoke it, will he not make good on it? If he said it, will he not do it? It's already done. Yes, Bridget, it's already done. Psalms 128. And I think about how in this season, how I've been able to experience supernatural provision and supernatural resources. God has allowed people that I know and don't know to sow into my ministry and to sow into my life, but it hasn't always been like that. It hasn't always been like that. But you have to keep growing. You have to keep building. You have to keep pursuing. And you do it by faith. That's when faith gonna get your money. Faith gets his money worth. Because you know, I got faith. I got faith. I walk by faith. I walk by faith. I got faith. We finna put it to the test. We're about to put it to the test when nothing is happening, when nothing, we think there's nothing is happening because we don't see it in the natural. Because something is always happening. I promise you, it's always happening. You got to put that faith to work. You got to do it by faith. Even despite what your feelings talking about, despite what your emotions be talking about, despite what other people talking about, despite what your flesh is trying to speak and teach to you, despite all of that, you got to do it by faith. We got to be like Nehemiah and don't come off the wall. Stay on the wall. We got to stay on the wall. Why? Because the season is shifting. The season will shift. It's just a season. It has to shift. It has to change. That's why the word says in Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season. A time for every purpose under heaven. It has to shift. To everything, there is a season. A time for every purpose under heaven. In other words, there's an appointed time for every phase and every season of my purpose. Everything, to everything, there is a season. There is an appointed time for every phase and every season of my purpose. Purpose and destiny is lived out in seasons. So the season will shift. The season will change. And if you keep growing, keep building, keep enduring, keep preparing, keep following divine instructions, keep obeying, it's going to shift in your faith. It's going to require some endurance. It's going to require you to work your faith. That faith that we talk about, that faith that we tell other people about, that faith that we shout about. It's time to put it to work. Work your faith. If you keep following divine instructions and obey God and do what you need to do, the season will shift in your favor. Let me tell you, this was the Spirit of God spoke to me and said, he said, your obedience is going to shift the season. I said, wow, I need to make sure I'm in obedience at all times. He said, your obedience is what's going to shift the season. To everything, there is a season. I don't feel like anything is happening. To everything, there is a season. God, where are you at? To everything, there is a season. You're not moving. You're not shifting. You're not doing anything. To everything, there is a season. I don't feel nothing. I don't see nothing. To everything, there is a season. To everything, there is a season. An appointed time. An appointed time for every phase, for every season of purpose. To everything, there is a season. The Bible says there's a time to sow and a time to reap. There's a time to plant and a time to harvest. There's a time for adversity. Yeah, there's a time for adversity. There's a time for pleasure. There's a time to laugh, a time to cry. There's a time to suffer. There's a time to heal. To everything, there is a season. There's a time to suffer. There's a time to heal. There's a time to plant. There's a time to harvest. What season are you in? What season are you in? Your destiny is lived out in seasons and phases. So then, the key to our next level, the key to our elevation, to the next level, the next dimension, the key to our elevation, this is what he said, complete the season. It's that simple. I know. I thought you was going to go in detail and say you got to do this and you got to do that, and maybe we need to seek God about this. I'm giving it to you the way he gave it to me. During my times where I'm like, what's next? Where is that? Where is that? Where is that? What's next? Complete the season. The key to your elevation, the key to the next level, our next dimension, is to complete the current season. What has God assigned you to do in this season? What has God instructed you to do in this season? Complete the season. Complete the assignment. Complete the season. Have you stopped and started doing something else? Have you laid it aside and said it's taking too long? And God said, I want you to do this for 3 years. You want to do it for 6 months. But you don't know what's on the other side of that season. You don't know the door that he's got waiting to open for you. You don't know what's about to be released into your life. And so you're giving up after 7 months on this particular project or whatever assignment he has told you to do. You know what he's told you to do in this season. Are you completing it? And sometimes we stay on stuff too long. I'm a long-term person. I'm going to do it. No, he said that was only for 6 months. You got to move on. I'm waiting on you. You still in that. You still occupied with that, and I've moved. I've shifted. I got something else I'm trying to get you to move into, but you're a long-term person, so you're going to stick with this when I only gave you this for 6 months. Or you're a short-term person, and you don't want to do anything long-term, and God may say, I need you to do this for 5 years. I need you to do this for 2 years, and you don't want to do it, but you don't even know that you're blocking yourself. You're blocking yourself. Locking yourself out of the next phase, locking yourself out of the next season because you're not a short-term person or you're not a long-term person. You got to be whatever person God needs you to be in that season. Whatever the assignment calls for, that's what you got to be. That's what you got to be. So has your season been perfected? Has your current season been completed? That's my question to you. Or are you waiting around just for something to happen? Or are you waiting for it to shift? Come on, we know people like that. You're just waiting around for something to shift, something to happen, something to move. You got to work while you wait. You got to work while you wait. And that word wait also means expectation, anticipation. So you got to be preparing for what you're expecting. You got to be preparing for what you anticipate. Work while you wait. Or you completing the current season. Or you completing the current season. Or you completing what God has assigned you to do in this season. Because I'm going to tell you, your next level is predicated on it. We don't, who told us? Who told us? I'm talking to all of us. Who told us we get to skip phases and seasons? And come on, there has been some seasons where I wanted to skip it. I don't want this season. I don't want to walk through the season. I don't want to go through the season. I don't even want to see the season. I don't want to feel the season. I don't want to deal with the season. There are seasons that we want to skip. I don't want no parts of that season. But guess what? We don't get to skip it. Because that may be the very season that give you the endurance and the strength that you need to go to the next level. You don't get to skip it. Just like you in school, you can't go from the 7th grade to the 12th grade. You got to graduate. You got to graduate. You can't go from the 7th grade to the 12th grade, the 9th grade to the 12th grade, unless there's a very special circumstance. And you just a genius. And I know there's some out there, and that's very rare. You cannot skip a grade. You got to complete one grade to get to the next grade. You got to complete one level to get to the next level. I can't go from middle school to college. I got to go from high school to college. I don't get to skip that part. I don't get to skip seasons. I don't get to skip phases. I don't get to skip levels. So if we couldn't do it in school, jump from the 7 to the 12, we can't do it in our calling. We can't do it in our purpose. We can't do it in our destiny. You don't get to skip that part. You got to graduate, or there is no promotion. There is no promotion. There's no promotion without completion. There's no promotion without advance. Think about David in the Bible. Y'all know the story, David and Goliath. You think he just woke up one day and said, I'm going to go defeat Goliath? I got this. No, there was some preparation. David went through some seasons. Come on. We know David didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm about to go get Goliath. I'm about to defeat Goliath. I'm about to conquer Goliath. No. There were some seasons and some phases that had to be completed before David got to the Goliath level. There was some preparation that had to take place. There was a refining of his gift, that slingshot. He was a beast with that slingshot. He had to refine it. He took down a lion, took down a bear. He was ready for Goliath now, but he didn't wake up ready for Goliath. There were seasons that had to be completed. There were phases that had to be completed. There was levels that had to be completed. There were gifts that had to be developed and refined. And he was ready with that slingshot. But he was ready for the Goliath season because he was prepared for it. And when he got into the Goliath season, remember, there was another season and another level waiting on him. When he was ready to take down Goliath, there was another level. There was rewards and spoils, wealth, and the daughter of the king, and wealth in the family, and no taxes. There was a whole nother level waiting. He was about to enter into another dimension, another level once he took down Goliath. So Goliath was a season, and once he conquered Goliath, there was another season waiting. But guess what? He prepared for every season. He had to complete some seasons. He had to complete some levels. Does that make sense? And I know sometimes we don't like the current season. We don't care for it. We don't like what God is doing. We don't like what God is shaping in our lives. We don't like what God is taking us. We don't like this season. I don't like this season. I don't like what's going on. But you don't get to skip. You don't get to skip that part. You don't get to skip that part. Yes, it may be painful. It may be difficult. There's opposition. There's adversity. There's darkness. There's depression. I'm ready to come up out of this season. Sometimes we say that in certain seasons. I'm ready to come out of this season, but we don't get to skip that part. You know what we have to do? We got to do what James says in James 1. He says, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. What? Count it all joy. Do you know I'm in pain? Because come on, when we look at that verse sometimes, depending on what season you're in, and you're talking about count it all joy when you fall into various trials, and you like count it all, how can I count this joy? My family is falling apart. I'm ready for my business to increase. I'm ready for my ministry to expand. I'm trying to get the kids together. My marriage is, going crazy. I'm in pain and I'm suffering and I'm in a crazy relationship and my friends are acting crazy and all of this stuff is going on. And you talking about count it all joy. What is the joy in that? How do I count it all joy? You do it by faith. And I'm going to give you something here. And this is my revelation that I got. The only way you can really do this by faith, when we're talking about count it all joy, when you fall into various trials, when you already know ain't nothing about this season, talking about count it joy. Where do I get it from? I got to dig deep. I got to dig deep. This is a season. It may be one of those seasons. And so the way you do that, this is what I've learned, the revelation that I've gotten when I'm in one of those seasons. I'm talking about, God, what you mean count it all joy? But he was like, I'm not changing my word. That's what the word said. It's not changing. So either I get with it and get a revelation, or I stay and argue with God about, God, what you mean count it all joy? Because he's saying he's not changing his word. His word is not changing. It's forever. And so this is what I got from it. The only way you can really do it by faith, because you got to count it all joy by faith. The only way you can really do that is when you got a picture of your future in front of you. Is when you got an image of your destiny in the forefront. When you're able to revisit the vision and a dream that God has shown you. When you're looking at that picture and you're looking at what God spoke to you, or you're looking at the vision that you've written down and what God told you and declared over you, and you know where you're going, that's when you can do it by faith. Because while you're going through a difficult season, or you're waiting on God to move and shift in your life, or you're into the season where you're hurting and you're in pain, or you're in a season where you're like, look, it's time for increase, it's time for elevation. What you have to do in those difficult seasons, you have to have a picture of your future. You have to have a picture of your destiny in front of you. So every time you feel like you want to lay it aside, every time you want to say, I quit, I'm not doing this anymore, it's not worth it, you got to look at that picture in your mind. You got to look at that image of your future and say, okay, it's working together. Okay, it's working together. It's working together. It's working together for my good. It's working together for his glory. It's working together for my good. And that's what you have to do. That's how you're able to count it all joy. That's how you're able to do it by faith. You got to have a picture of your future. If you have no future in sight, if you don't have a picture of your destiny in front of you, an image that you can revisit in your mind, a vision that you've written down that you can go back and look over and revisit, then you're going to be hopeless. You're going to be hopeless. Yes, Dr. Rainey, all things work together. And that's what you have to continue to say. It's working together. It's working together. It's working together. So James says this, he says, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. That's endurance, tenacity, perseverance. Then he says, but let patience have its perfect work. Let it finish. Let it finish. Let it mature, that you may be complete and perfect, lacking nothing. So according to that word we just read, the difficult seasons, the challenging times, the trials, the tribulations, according to this word, is testing our faith, is producing patience in us, and is growing us up. That's the three things James talked about in that verse. According to that word, this trial, this difficult season, this adversity, this patience, and me expecting, and I'm still building, I'm still preparing. What this season is doing for me, what this challenging, uncomfortable season is doing for me, number one, is testing my faith. I said you're going to have to put your faith to work. Number two, is producing patience in me, which is endurance and long suffering and perseverance. And it also is growing you up. Because he says, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And that word perfect means matured and developed. That's why I say it comes to grow you up. It comes to grow you up. We can't stop growing. It comes to grow you up. In other words, once I've completed a season, once I've completed the previous season, or once I complete the current season, it should have produced maturity and growth in me. There should be fruit. Don't come out of season and telling me you come out of season and I'm in a new level and I don't see no fruit. Because that's what James was just talking about. He said it's producing patience in you, it's testing your faith, and it's perfecting you. And that just means maturing you and developing you. So when I come out of a season, when you've completed that prior season, it should have produced growth and maturity in you. There should be fruit. See, growth and maturity is just fruit. It's evidence that you went through a process. It's evidence that you endured something. It's evidence that you're doing something. It's evidence that you've been planted. Growth and maturity is fruit. It's evidence that you've been cultivated. It's evidence that you overcame a previous season. It's evidence that you endured, that you persisted. It's evidence. It's fruit that you overcame something, that you went through something, that you allowed something to be worked out in you. Growth and maturity is fruit. It's evidence. So if anybody ever tell you you're growing, I see the maturity, I see the growth in you, I see you developing, that's the fruit they see. That's evidence. In other words, all they're saying is, I know you've been through a process. I know you've endured some things. I know that you persisted in something. I know that you were sustained. I know that you overcame some prior seasons, because I see growth and maturity. And growth and maturity is just a fruit, and it's evident. Just like you plant a lemon seed and it goes through the process. The lemon seed endures the process. It's cultivated, it's watered, it's nurtured. And then it begins to mature and develop into a full-blown lemon. Now you see the fruit. And that's the same with our life. We're planted in seasons, in dark seasons, trying seasons, tiring seasons. We're cultivated, we're watered, we're nurtured, planted in dark places. And then you begin to see the manifestation. You begin to see the maturity and the development and the fruit. It's no difference from a seed, a watermelon seed or a lemon seed that goes through that process. It's fruit. It's evidence. And the thing about patience, the thing about endurance, the thing about long suffering, it only can really grow and develop in testing times, trying times, tribulation. It really only can grow and develop in uncomfortable seasons when pressure is on you. You can't, how can you grow endurance in a good time? Because I'm wondering that. Endure what? What are you enduring? Persevering out of what? So your patience and your long suffering and your perseverance, when James says, let patience have its perfect work, it can only do that. And that's why he said, and count it all joy in the various trials and tribulations. He said, because you produce, I got patience working in you. I got long suffering and perseverance working in you that you're going to need on the next level, in the next dimension. So the only way to really produce patience and endurance is with pressure, uncomfortable seasons, trials and tribulations and tests. That's when you really develop. That's when you really develop. And be honest about it. We want to avoid. None of us want to go through trials and tribulations and experience adversity. God, can I skip that part? But I told you earlier, you don't get to skip that part. You got to go from the 7th grade to the 8th grade. You got to go from middle school to high school, and then you go to high school to college. You don't get to skip that part. And we all want to avoid it. Who wants to go through adversity? Who wants to hurt? Who wants to go through pain? But there's no way around it. There's no way around it but to simply go through it. There's no way around it but to simply go through it. Nobody wants to experience it, but you can't be perfected without it. You can't be perfected without it. We don't want trials. We don't want pressure. We don't want testing. We don't want to count it all joy because we don't even want the trials. We don't want the testing time. Well, we actually get to make our word work for us. That word that we've been eating, that word that we've been consuming, that Bible that we've been reading every day, that scriptures that we've been quoting, them Bible studies that we've been a part of it. God forbid, it's time to put it to work. It's time to put it to work. It's time to make use of it. So there's no way around it but to simply to walk through it. There's no way. You can't be perfected without it. You can't be matured without it. You can't be developed without it. You can't be seasoned without it. So I'm closing. Allow God to finish the work in you in this season, on this level, so that you can see promotion. Purpose is lived out in phases and seasons. To everything, there is a season. Are you completing the current season? I want you to think about that. Am I completing the current season, or have I walked away from my assignment? Have I walked away from a project talking about it's taking too long? because I don't want to do anything long term? Or am I holding on to something that God said that's short term? Why are you still doing that? Why are you still operating in that? Why you're still connected and attached to that? I've moved on. You still there. Talking about you waiting on me, I'm waiting on you. Because I'm going to tell you something, it determines the pace. God orders our steps, but let me tell you, we have something to say about the pace of. And I know we got timing and there's an appointed time for everything, but there's an aspect of it that you can't control how slow it goes. If you refuse to finish an assignment, if you refuse to complete the season, if you refuse to allow patience to do its perfect work in you, if you refuse to be matured and developed, then guess what? Your pace is slowed down. You said you waiting on God. God said you're slowing things up. I've been ready to take you to that next dimension. I've been ready to take you to the next level. And so now you're telling people, well, God just taking his time with me. And it's coming. It's a slow process. Yeah, God has an appointed time. And there's things that are slow in the kingdom. We know that because there's things got to be worked out in you. But you can't continue to use that excuse if we see years and years and years and there's no fruit. There's no manifestation. You can stop putting that on God. Stop putting that on God. At some point, because I've had to do this in my life, let me make sure that I'm not holding up the season. Let me make sure that I'm not locking myself out of the next phase and the next season of my purpose, the next phase and the next season of my destiny. Let me make sure, because I can be the one slowing down the pace. And I'm talking about, God, you're not moving, you're not shifting, you're not changing, you're not doing anything. I'm ready for next. I'm ready for next level. I'm ready for more. And God is saying, you're slowing the pace because you're not completing the season. You're not doing the assignment that I've instructed you to do because you don't like it. Or because you don't want to continue to do it year after year. He may want you to do it for a year, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 years, but you don't know what's on the other side of that season. So my message to you is what God put on my heart. Number one is, just because it doesn't feel like purpose doesn't mean it's not purpose. Complete your season. And if you don't know what it is, let me tell you, if you don't know, I need you to go before God and I need you to get in prayer and I need you to say, okay, God, have I stopped something that you need me to go complete? Have I let up early on something? Have I let go? Have I loosened my grip on something? Is there an assignment that I looked over because I didn't feel like doing it, or because I don't like it, or because it don't give me recognition or attention from other people? You need to go before God and ask him if you're not sure. God, is it me? Oh Lord, is it me that's holding up my season? Is it me that's holding up my next level? Is it me that's holding up myself from going to the next dimension? I need to know that, because if it's not me, then I'll be patient. As long as I know that I'm not slowing the pace up and I'm doing everything that I know to do, I'm in obedience, I'm following divine instructions, because remember I told you earlier, the Spirit of God said your obedience is going to shift your next level. Your obedience is going to shift your season. That's what's going to shift your season, your obedience. So if the season ain't shifting and you feel like it's been too long, check your obedience and see if there's something that you need to be finishing up. There's something that you need to start, or something that you let go, you stop because you was tired of doing it. I'm not doing this long term. When it comes down to God, you got to be whatever term it is, short term, long term, no term, the term. You got to be whatever term it is. Because otherwise you lock yourself out in the season. So allow God to finish the work that he's doing in you in this season, on this level, so that you're ready for what's next, so that you're prepared for what's next. And once you complete the current season, then a new season opens up for you. A new season opens up for you. Once you complete the current season, a new season opens up for you. To everything, there is a season, appointed time for every phase in purpose. For every phase and season of purpose, to everything there is a season. The season will open up for you once you complete the current season. So that's my word from God today. That's the word that God has put on my heart the last couple of days, probably really weeks. I kind of been thinking about this. He said, look, make sure that you're completing the current season. You're not getting ahead of yourself. Make sure you're doing the assignment and the things I put on your heart to do. It may seem minimal to you, because it don't get a lot of attention, or it don't get likes, or whatever the case may be, but complete it. Because I'm going to tell you something. There's something connected. There's something attached to it. There's something connecting to it. So keep preparing. Keep building. Keep preparing and enduring and growing for the next. You want to be ready for next. You want to be ready for next. Well, that's all I have today. Let me say a short prayer over you. I hope this word blessed you. Keep preparing for next. Keep building for next. Even when your feelings don't want to do it, your emotions don't want to do it, your flesh is speaking and teaching you, telling you it's not worth it, it's taking too long, they not this, I don't have no support, I don't have no help, how it's going to turn out. To everything, there is a season. Keep building, keep preparing with the mentality of there is a next. There is a next. There is another phase. There is another season. And I'm not going to lock myself out. I'm not going to lock myself out of my next season or my next level because I refuse to grow. I refuse to develop. I refuse to complete my current season. What has God told you to do in this? What is your instruction? Get busy. Get busy. Let me pray for you. Father God, I thank you for the individuals that's on this power chat today, Father. I thank you for your word on today. God, help us. When we don't understand, remind us of what you're doing. Remind us of the previous instruction. Strengthen us to complete the season, to complete the assignment that has been given. Father, I pray for every soul on this chat that they be about your business. Whatever phase or season of their calling that they may be in, I pray elevation is right around the corner. I pray next level is right around the corner. I pray right now that they are about to walk into a new dimension. Somebody is about to walk into some new season. God, we thank you for it. We thank you for it. We give you praise in advance for it. We give you praise in advance for it. And we will count it all joy. When we don't like the season, when we don't prefer the season, when we're hurting in pain, when we're frustrated, we will count it all joy. Remind us to count it all joy and revisit the image, the picture, and the vision that you've shown us of our destiny, the picture that you've shown us of our future. Remind us to take a look at it, to revisit it when we're feeling hopeless, wanting to give up on the call, wanting to give up on the assignment, wanting to give up on the purpose. God, I ask that your spirit remind us, give us that inner knowledge, that revelation, that inner knowledge that we can keep preparing so we can keep building and we can keep enduring. Every soul on this chat will keep preparing. They will keep building. They will keep representing. They will keep enduring. And they will keep growing for what you have next for them. And their next will blow their mind. We thank you. We receive it by faith. We receive it by faith. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May his favor be upon your life and may his peace travel with you. I love you and I'll see you next week. Bye.